everyone, and welcome to another episode of Storytime with the Scariest Podcast.
Woo!
I'm Robin Grace. This is Adam Diaz.
Hello.
You sound like the guy from Rocky Horror Picture Show.
Nailed it.
And we're here to read you folks some homegrown horrors. Adam's going to tell us what those are.
Homegrown horrors, the wonderful stories that you listeners and viewers have sent to us. They're called homegrown because they're yours or a friend or family members. And they're called horrors because they're scary or spooky or supernatural or spiritual or sometimes true crime. Sometimes you were scared out of your mind and it turns out it was nothing. There are really good stories like that where it's just a total coincidence and they make us laugh at the end, but they scare the shit out of us all the way up until then. I love those ones too. And sometimes they're extraterrestrial. If someone had a story like that and they're like, you know what, I'd like to share it with them. I'd like to hear it on the show. Robin, how can they get it to us?
You can send it to our email, storytime@scariest.com. If you don't want to do it directly, you can go to our website, scariest.com. I almost said storytime.com. That's not right. Scariest.com. There's a contact us page. You fill out that form. It emails it to us that way. We also have a bunch of different social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all that fun stuff. Yeah.
Indeed. So go ahead and reach on out to us. We would love to hear and share your story. Also, something I should mention since it's the beginning of the show, and this show comes out in January, is that it's currently January Patreon push. Yes, indeedy, feed the needy being us in this sentence.
Oh my God!
Because we're trying to get as many new patrons as we can for the month of January. We do it once a year. We do let you folks know at the end of each episode how you can contribute if you would like to financially or monetarily, however you want to say that. Realistically, what we're saying here is we have a Patreon. If you go to patreon.com/scarishpodcast, check that out. Tiers start as low as $1. You get ad-free episodes as low as $1. You get early access for as low as $1. That's $4 per month. And that actually really does help us out because the more folks we get, the more money we get. And it's like $1 from one person here. It's like a homeless person begging for change, kind of, but not exactly because they have dignity and I don't. Seriously, I will sell out for whatever. That said, we would sincerely appreciate it if you go over to our Patreon, check out those tiers. Robin does some amazing stuff with our merchandise tier, which starts at $10, sends out amazing stuff like the keychain that we have dangling right here. This is the Wendigo keychain. This went out to every person that was at a $10 level or above. And then there's keychains designed for another 2 designs, I think, in fact.
There's Mothman and Krampus. And in this spring, package that I'm going to be sending out is going to be Nessie.
Okay, so that's when those ones will come out. But yeah, head on over to patreon.com/scarishpodcast. See if you can help us out if you can. It means the world to us. We are currently, the last time I checked, at 75. I think we picked up one today, which is always nice to see for the first day of January Patreon push. And if we get to 150, we're going to go to the Stanley Hotel. And we're going to record an episode at the Stanley Hotel, which I would be extremely excited for.
I have never been to Colorado, so
I've driven through it, but I've never stayed in it. So help us get to 150 for as low as $1 a month. It'll be a very fun thing to do. So that said, okay, I am done talking about JPP, January Patreon push. And we're going to move into the stories this evening. We have 4. I have 2. She has 2. Do you want to go first or do you want me to go first?
Why don't you go first? Because I don't even have it pulled up yet.
Okay. Sounds good. Let me see which one I want to do first. Not that one. We're going to do the other one. Okay. This is how the Storytime episodes can start. This one starts out like this. The subject is Scariest Stories Part 2, okay to read on podcast, smiley face, which is an amazing subject. If you're going to send one in, that's the way to do it. Starts out, hey, Robin and Adam.
Hello.
Hello. Amanda and Jaron here again. I hope I said your name right. It's Jaron. What do you think, Robin? Did I say it right? Jaron? Jaron?
Yeah.
Cool. I hope so. Let me know if I didn't.
It just sounds like Jared. You know, Jared?
Yeah,
Jaron.
Exactly.
Maybe. I don't know.
We sent the story a while back about smelling cigarette smoke and associating it with Jaron's grandma who passed away. We also had sent a story about our old apartment, and that was apparently used to cook meth. We wanted to clarify. We said that the landlord/owner had to gut the whole first floor, but it was the second floor, which means that we were literally living in the exact apartments that had been used to cook meth before we moved in. Great. We're glad to get that clarification. I know we've all been sitting on the edge of our seats for that one. Actually, there's a few of them that we have been sitting on the edge of our seats for, so good stuff. Anyway, here's 2 more stories for the podcast. Number 1. My grandpa, in parentheses, my mom's dad. I think it's always good to clarify that, so thank you. My mom's dad had terminal cancer.
Aww.
We all knew there would soon be a day that we would wake up without him. It was hard because we lived 600 miles apart when he was going through all of the chemo bullshit, so we couldn't really help him or my grandma other than to offer our love and support.
I just watched all my life this past weekend, and it is about someone who gets cancer, and I just can't take it right now. It's so triggering. I was crying my eyes out, dude, watching this movie, and now this email, I'm like, oh my god.
So I should have gone with a trigger warning. I didn't know what this said, though, so continuing on, this is like a paragraph more, so trigger warning. Anyway, one night my mom was sleeping and having a normal dream when my grandpa showed up in her dream. She had the thought, that's weird, what's my dad doing here, and then shot awake. Seconds later, the phone rang, and it was my uncle telling us my grandpa was gone. My mom took a lot of comfort in seeing him again, not only to know that he's not sick anymore, but that he wanted to come see her after he died.
That's really sweet.
It is. And we get a lot of those, and I really, really think there's something to every single one of them. Like, there's just something you can do when you pass on to just sort of,
you just visit everybody.
Yeah, tap everyone and let them know, like, hey, I'm okay. And I would really hope, and this is probably just me, that you can tap people who really need to know. Because if you have a huge family, you know what I mean? Like, my grandfather had so many kids. Like, he had his kids, he had, like, kids that weren't his that he took care of, and he had like just family and friends all around. And I'm sure that he was just able to sort of visit them on his way out. And that was when I was in 7th grade. And I've told that story before about an owl just somehow appearing in our attic and hooting. I don't know how you say that. And then finally when it stopped, we all went to sleep, and then we found out my grandpa had passed away. So there's always some comfort to hear when you read stories like that. So thank you for sending that. And there's a number 2 now. So when I was younger, our house had an unfinished basement. In parentheses, sorry, Robin. This is just not your email.
Nope.
Glad I gave it to me. It was a daylight basement, though, so it wasn't creepy, so that's cool. We had our computer, an air hockey table, a couch, and our freezer in there.
What's a daylight basement?
I've never heard of that either. I would imagine that it's just a basement that you only go into during the daylight, maybe?
No. Maybe it's...
So you don't know what it is, but you know I'm wrong.
It must be those basements where there's windows at the top. Because it's just like you're at there. That's the ground level, but there's still windows above that. So the basement.
I thought that's just all basements. I thought all basements had those windows right there, but that's just me. I grew up in the Midwest where all basements had that, so.
I don't know.
Someone Google it, let us know. Okay, continuing on. They had all this amazing stuff down in this basement. It's almost like they're trying to lure Robin down there. It was kind of our junk room. Anyway, I kept having this recurring nightmare about my dad in the basement. In my dream, he would calmly take me into the basement and show me this fake sword thing. Just a rubber run-of-the-mill toy sword. He would jokingly plunge it into his chest, and it would deflect and bounce to his sides, like rubber do. Then he would pull it back to where it would be straight, and suddenly the sword would turn into a real fucking sword.
Oh my god.
He would then playfully plunge it into his chest, just this time without bouncing away. Because that's how metal do. I would instantly wake up after this terrified. What the actual fuck? I have no idea why I kept dreaming about this. It scared the shit out of me every time, and I absolutely hated it.
This email scares the shit.
It's a really rough, recurring dream.
Yeah.
Anyway, thanks for always bringing some extra fun and laughs into our lives. You guys are the best. Shout out to Spooky Mom. You the real MVP. She really is.
Yeah.
Amanda and Jaren. P.S. We say stupid shit from Scarish on an almost daily basis, i.e. dollar bills, y'all. Yo, dog. What are the oods? And shout out to Spotify. Whenever we open Spotify, we love it. LOL.
Aw, thank you guys so much.
That's so awesome.
This is just such an intense email. There's so much. That night, like that dream/nightmare would be absolutely terrifying.
I would much rather have recurring nightmares of something happening to me than something happening to a family member.
If that happens in my dreams, I always panic that something bad is going to happen to them in real life.
She's a panicker. It's true.
Yes, today.
She panics all the time. She panics about stuff she can't control. So you're not alone out there, and we appreciate you sending in that email.
So this next email is from Juan, and the subject is sleepwalking. Hello again. It's your boy again. Coming at you with another story, this time about sleepwalking. Ever since I could remember, I was an active sleeper. From walking, talking, eating, drinking, and even changing clothes. How? That is mind-blowing.
I mean, there's a lot of things that your brain does on cruise control, right? So just imagine that you're not really paying attention to it, and you could probably do that in your sleep, literally.
Like drive?
I wouldn't do that. But yeah, your brain probably could do like a normal route. You could wake up at work. Be like, how the fuck did I get here?
When I was younger, I would just notice I would wake up in a different room, or I'd be sleeping on the couch when I could have sworn that I fell asleep in my bed.
That's how it happened to me, too. I just thought, too, wouldn't it suck if you woke up at work, but you didn't clock in when you got there? It's like, thanks, sleepwalking self, I just gave them free time.
Yeah. Other days, I would go to sleep wearing matching pajamas and then wake up in shorts and a t-shirt. One time, I was woken up by my older sister furious with me. My alarm was my sister screaming at me. Naturally, I was overcome with feelings of fear, confusion, and annoyance, considering that she was shouting at me and I wasn't fully conscious. I think that's the reason why you don't wake up someone who's sleepwalking, because they're just like, where the hell am I?
You get really confused, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I wake up from a nap and I'm like, where am I? What year is it, you know?
The worst thing is waking up while you're literally walking. Because, like, you know the feeling of being groggy when you wake up and you're in the middle of an action? So you're like, what the fuck is happening?
I've definitely woken up with my leg in the air before.
Yeah, you have. That sounds weird.
Ew. No, I mean, like, if I'm running in my dream or something, you know, and you wake up because you're running, right? And so your leg...
Oh, you make a motion?
Yeah, so your leg...
That's different from waking up with your leg in the air. Just saying.
Yeah,
you woke up and your leg kicked.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Into the air.
I hate you. So you woke up and kicked your leg into the air.
It was like, ugh.
You didn't wake up with your leg.
It's like my legs are like this, right? I'm sleeping. Wait, I gotta make my knees. Hold on.
They're pointy and they're always in my back. In case
but
it's
like my leg just goes up, you know, and is trying to do the walking motion, and that's what wakes me up. It's like jerking me forward.
I've had dreams where I woke up because I was trying to do something so hard in the dream that I did in real life, but it's usually like in an argument. So I'll just be sleeping and I'll wake up and be like, fuck you. And I'm like, oh, I really wanted that person in that made up dreamland to hear me tell them to go fuck themselves. And I'm almost like disappointed.
Sometimes I have a really nice life in my dreams and I don't want to wake up.
Because you don't have a really nice life right now?
I wake up, I'm like, oh man, I'm not rich. Fuck.
She wakes up, looks over, sees it's still me and not David Tennant, and then just bawls her eyes out.
Or Chris Evans.
I cry when I wake up and I'm not next to Chris Evans, so understandable.
Okay. Oh God. Oh. Everybody wants to wake up next to America's ass. Okay.
Bring me a higher love. Ooh.
Jesus. I give her a second to calm down and I ask her what has her so angry. Turns out, while I was sleepwalking, I walked into her room, ate an entire package of those soft sugar cookies with sprinkles. Had to have been at least a dozen. The crazy part was I had no idea she'd bought the cookies or even where she had hidden them in her room. Because conscious me would have done the same thing.
That's funny.
I was so confused about why she was so angry with me. That's all for this edition of Stories brought to you by Chaboy. Thanks again for all that you guys do. Keep on creeping on. Thank you so much for sending that story. I think that's absolutely hilarious. And I feel like that does happen to so many people. You've done the sleepwalking episode. People just
twice
do strange things in their sleep.
The weirdest thing is when people bone in their sleep. And there's an actual case of someone who like was married, or maybe she was divorced, and then she went to the doctor because she was having issues, and the doctor told her, like, you have a sexually transmitted disease. And she told him, like, that is not possible because I have not had sex in years. And then eventually, like, her ex started messaging her because she was getting up and going to his house and sleeping with him and then driving home in her sleep. And as crazy as it sounds, it is also plausible. You might think if you're someone who's never sleptwalked before, like, that's horseshit. As someone who has sleptwalked or sleepwalked before, it is not horseshit. Like, you can do some bizarre stuff. It's not exactly Step Brothers, but I mean, yeah, you can do some crazy stuff. So, thank you for sending that in. Stay safe if you're sleepwalking out there.
Yeah.
All right. So before we move into the commercial break, we want to remind you, if you head over to manscaped.com and use code SCARYISH, all capitals, at checkout, you will get 20% off plus free shipping. Pretty solid deal. Go check out the products they have there. There are some wonderful things like the Lawnmower 3.0, which I've had forever. And it's great for trimming sensitive, delicate skin, as well as the Weed Whacker, which they sent, and I absolutely love it. My nose is a disaster, and it has helped me rein that in. So head on over one more time, manscaped.com, and use code SCARISH at checkout for 20% off and free shipping. All right, we're going to move into the rest of the commercials right about meow. And we're back. All right, so I'm going to move on to my next story, and this one's subject is the Sisters of St. Joseph. And it starts out like this. Hello, spooky friends.
Hello.
Hello. And you all need to yell hello at the top of your lungs, even if it makes
hello.
You look crazy. I feel like I request that so much. Someone who's, like, obedient is right now in some sort of mental institution, like, don't make me, like, please. And then I said it, and they're like, hello! And they're like, oh, another 72 hours for him. I recently took my family to a drive-through Christmas display, and my wife wanted to bring her grandma, so grandma came along. The total time we were in the car was 3 hours, and 2.5 of those hours were on the highway with my wife in the back with the kids and grandma up front with me. Grandma is an old school Catholic woman who is very conservative. She also likes to complain about things, so I had my doubts about having her sit in the front seat. I don't know how we got to the topic of her work life, but that's where she spent most of the drive talking about, and it was amazing. Grandma worked from 1965 to 2001 at the Sisters of St. Joseph building in Kalamazoo, Michigan. The Sisters of St. Joseph building had been everything from an orphanage, a private school, and a nursing home, all built and ran by nuns. Grandma was everything from a nurse aide to a physical therapist, and the Sisters of St. Joseph building has the reputation of being one of the more haunted places in the city. I am going to share the best 3 stories Grandma told me on this trip.
Oh, that's cute.
Ask your relatives, especially your elders, for their stories, because this is a perfect example that they have so many to share and just no one ever asks them.
When I was a kid, I did that to my grandpa and my dad, and they just have so many war stories, so many stories of how it was like for them, living that life. And when I was younger, I feel like maybe my mom was more open to telling me like the spooky things that happen. I don't think she is now. But when I was younger, she had like scary stories. We had tapes. So we had these tapes that were in Vietnamese, but they were like scary stories.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And we used to listen to, they were cassette tapes. Okay. This is a long time ago, but we would put them in like the little tape player or whatever and listen to these ghost stories.
That's super cool.
Yeah.
I wonder if they're still around somewhere. All right, story number 1, the 4th floor. The 4th floor and the basement are known to be the most haunted places in the building. One night, Grandma was working the night shift with a new coworker. Grandma was showing her how to do rounds and how to go around the building to make sure it was secure. When the two were in the courtyard, they saw shadowy figures moving in the windows on the 4th floor. Now, the 4th floor was only used for storage. No rooms were up there and no one hardly went up there. The new coworker asked what those shadows were, and Grandma said without hesitation, "Those are just the ghosts of the sisters that have passed away. You have nothing to worry about because they are spirits of nuns and they won't hurt you." The new coworker started to freak out, but Grandma calmed her down and made everything okay, and the night went on without anything else happening. I fucking love that. It's like, they're just ghosts. Like, chill out.
Some people, though, they're just like, yeah, whatever.
They've been around it so much, it's just commonplace for them at that point. All right. Story 2, the apparition. Grandma worked closely with the nuns and became good friends with them, especially with this one Irish sister. Grandma was set to go on vacation, and she came into this sister's room to say goodbye, see you in a few days. The little Irish nun said to her that it was the last time that she would see her, and the nun thanked Grandma for her service. Grandma came back to work after vacation, and the nun passed away while she was on vacation. Around the middle of Grandma's shift, she went to the chapel to say a prayer. Upon arrival at the chapel, Grandma saw the little Irish nun walk up to the altar and then disappear into thin air. Grandma knew the Irish nun was in heaven and at peace.
Wow.
That's scary and also kind of sweet.
Yeah.
Story 3, God and Thunder. One day, these are really good titles.
Yeah.
One day at work,
The Mighty Smiter.
Right. One day at work, Grandma was set to give a nun a bath. It was thundering outside, so Grandma asked if the nun wanted to wait or take the bath. The nun asked to wait a few minutes. In those few minutes, they heard a clap of thunder, and then they heard an airplane fly overhead. After the airplane passed, the nun said that God had come down and took 2 sisters back with him.
Shut the front door.
Grandma asked the nun to repeat herself, and the nun said that in between the clap of thunder and the airplane, God came down and took 2 sisters with him back to heaven. This startled Grandma, but she proceeded to give this nun a bath, and when returning to the floor, a nurse asked if Grandma had heard that 2 nuns passed away within minutes of each other.
Shut the front door.
This threw Grandma off because what the nun had told her was true. I am very fortunate to have Grandma ride in the front seat with me. She told me stories that my wife had never heard before. Grandma's take on death, God, and ghosts is such a peaceful one. Grandma's getting up there in years, and we don't know how much time we will have with her.
Aww.
I asked the listeners of the podcast to go out and ask Grandma and Grandpa about their life. Grandma was so open and willing to share everything. All 4 of my grandparents are dead, and I wish I had spent more time with them so they could share their story with me.
Aww.
The Christmas lights we saw were the second best thing that happened that night. The number one thing was being able to talk and learn about Grandma.
That's really, really sweet and
Peace,
really cool.
Love, and happiness to all. Keep on creeping on. Your friend, Brian. P.S. I will send you pics of the Sisters of St. Joseph on Instagram. You don't have to read this part, LOL. Too late. So that is pretty awesome. And again, thank you so much for sending that message out there. It's like, can you imagine how awesome you're going to be the older you get? You know what I mean? How many stories you're going to have about your life. And then imagine that you have these amazing stories and no one cares. No one ever asks you. And I would be so annoyed. And I mean, I know exactly what I'm going to do. I'm just going to tell my stories when anyone wants to hear them all the time. And I'm going to drive everyone crazy.
Anyway.
Exactly. It's not going to change. It's going to get worse. So if you have a parent or a grandparent who's quiet, like my grandfather is, sometimes you just need to ask them questions and then they'll share something with you that's really amazing. So just please take that into consideration. Ask your grandparents or your parents for stories and then fucking write them down and send them to us. Don't be greedy. So thank you so much for sending that in. It sincerely means a lot.
So the final story of this episode is from Autumn. It looks like it's from Autumn. It begins. Hi, Robin and Adam.
Hello.
Hello, that's us. This is my second email that I've sent. The previous email was about my imaginary friend, Michael. I love stories about imaginary friends.
They're so fascinating.
So if you folks have those too, feel free to send it to us. Anyway, today, this will just be some creepy things that aren't very scary now, but terrifying when it happened. First, I'd like to thank you for making an amazing safe place for people who like to hear about spooky things and sharing their stories without being called crazy.
Thank you for listening and thank you for sharing your stories.
Yeah. Thanks to my always changing health, my medication is always changing and affects my mental health. And although I've always struggled, it always gets worse. As recently, I have had a very busy and anxious life. I'm doing schoolwork virtually while working as a receptionist at a medical building that's already stressful.
Right.
You guys have been my escape, and despite constant paranoia, it is just about the only thing that calms me. I'm so greatly happy that I found this amazing podcast. So thank you from the bottom of my heart for saving me from multiple panic attacks.
Aw.
Nice.
We're glad we can help in any way, shape, or form.
Anytime people message us or comment or things like that about how we're just a good part of their day, it makes me very happy.
Me too. It means a whole lot, and it's like, we should definitely keep doing this.
Yeah. Because sometimes we're like, I wish I had a week break, but...
How much free time will we have if we didn't do the show this week? I think that a lot, and it's just like, it's not worth it. I'd be so bored.
As I've said before, I work in a medical building. We provide massages and things of the sort. We are a Christian business. I myself am not religious, but I have gotten very good at pretending after growing up in a small church-going town. Church-going. Shit, that's one word. Despite everyone being God-fearing, some weird shit has happened. You know, I think when people just have that mentality, those things tend to happen more.
Yeah. I mean, there's like a science behind the manipulation of someone's psyche where if you keep them afraid, they see the thing they're afraid of.
Yes.
So it's just a way that people can sort of, I don't know, scare themselves.
I've worked at this small business for 3 years and have known the family who owns it longer. Every house they have lived in was haunted. I've always experienced the creepy shit at work, but just convinced myself I was nuts because no one else had ever mentioned anything. Recently, we got a new hire, and she asked me to come in early as she was uncomfy there alone. I have had my fair share of creeps coming in, so I came in as soon as I could. When I arrived, I immediately asked what made her scared. She started explaining that she heard some people trying to come in our side doors, which are both bricked up. That's weird.
Maybe it's someone trying to get into a building for help or something like that.
But it's bricked up. There's no way to get in.
Would you know that it's bricked up? Like, what if it was bricked up from the inside and the outside just looked like a door? You know
Oh,
what I mean?
yeah. I know.
Maybe?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just speculating.
There's a lot of buildings like that out here because on the outside, it looks like there's doors. And then on those doors, it's like, go to the other door. And it's because that's like their storage room or something. And there's no way to get in.
Right.
Okay. You cannot open them or even really get to the doors. To keep a relaxing energy, we work almost completely in the dark with little to no noise at all. So far, the weird shit that has gone on is weird men hitting on us or giving off creepy serial killer vibes, walking or running from the back of the hall up to the front desk where we are, yet no one appears, as well as seeing heads poking around corners when no one is there.
That's terrifying.
That's some haunting at Hill House shit.
It is.
When both of us told our boss about said creepiness, all she said was, quote, "Well, I say to the place when we moved in, we should be fine," end quote. That'll do it. How many stories have we read or topics have we done where it's like they saged it and it just got worse?
Right. It's like it just antagonized the thing where they're like, dickhead.
Sadly, I cannot get away from the ghosts even at home. We have ghosts that don't cause trouble aside from one, but I'll give her a pass because she's my aunt.
Wow.
We have one who's in my room. He's a 12-year-old boy. He's left handprints on my thigh when having a panic attack to distract me. And I always say, thank you, Charles, and the coldness, as well as the red mark, goes away. He also likes to mess with my pride flag by pulling the bottom corner up into the air, and when you yell at him to put it down, it floats back into place against the wall. I don't know if that's I get that them putting a handprint on you is like a way to distract you, but at the same time, that is absolutely terrifying.
I was going to say, it's super scary, and like, it's one thing if you're just sort of used to it, so it's like, oh, they're messing with my flag again, but if like you were to leave, and someone else were to come in and they would continue that activity, it'd be like, we have a haunting. Like, they would be terrified of all that same activity.
The other one is a small woman in the kitchen. Things get misplaced and she occasionally messes with the lights, but her energy is pretty much gone. The last one is tall, and I mean tall as fuck, and they stand at the end of our hall in my sister's doorway. My sisters and I are very casual about them, so when we see one, we're just like, hey, that ghost's in your room. Go tell them you're okay so they can go rest for a while. My mom just always shakes her head like there is no ghost here, you stupid kids. Thanks to an asshole that will soon be going to jail for what should be forever, my family has one ghost that is pretty much always around. Oh no, this is really intense. Okay. So, trigger warning for everybody if you want to, skip ahead or whatnot. My aunt was murdered by her boyfriend. It's been over a year since he killed her. He hasn't been arrested yet. Oh, my sweet Jesus. My aunt was a huge fan of horror, and she said before her passing that she would, quote unquote, haunt the fuck out of us.
That's so funny. I've said that to so many people.
And she does. Anytime we play a radio, it always ends up on her favorites, and we just say thank you and listen with her. I also have a toy that is just sitting on a tiny metal pillar, and it occasionally is thrown to the floor, and I just yell, "Summer!" and she won't throw it for a while. She has a grandson who just turned 2, who I will call my nephew. Ever since she passed, he's talked to someone that isn't there, and then will shake his head and do something mischievous, just like she would have wanted, and her daughter will yell and tell her son that she isn't scared to whoop him and his granny. And then he will laugh and point to an empty space and then point to his mom and nod. That's creepy and cute at the same time. It's really, oh my gosh. Okay.
Slightly terrifying and slightly super cute.
Well, you don't know if that's her either, You don't know if that's...
Yeah, that's the other thing, too.
Yeah.
It's like you're just guessing based off of what your instincts tell you.
Speaking of the grandson, he will do things that scare the shit out of me when we are alone. Like the one incident when I was walking outside in the dark with him in my arms, trying to get into our grandparents' house to make him a drink. While I'm walking downhill with a big-ass baby in my arms, he stops his cranky mode and points behind me, pitch fucking black, and laughs and starts to talk to it. When I say, please tell Summer that I'm scared and I'd like her to stop talking with you because it is really scaring me. He did not stop at all and continued almost hysterically. As soon as we got into the house, he once again got fussy and mad because he was hungry. As soon as we leave the house to head back up the hill to where everyone was, this motherfucker starts pointing and laughing and talking like an idiot, and I was considering yelling to come get me or throwing this demon-ass child.
Wow.
But I didn't.
That's
I continued walking as fast as I could, and when they asked why I was out of breath, I was like, this kid is getting heavy. Poor kid. Anyway, I hope you enjoy these not-so-scary things. I think they're absolutely terrifying.
Yeah, some of those were scary.
That I just wanted to share. Hopefully it will spark some fun combos. Have a good day. Thank you for being my favorite people and making my boyfriend almost cry when I recite some stories I've heard, because he is not good with scary things at all, while scary things are the only things I can focus on.
That's funny.
That's absolutely hilarious. Those stories are scary. I mean, I don't think I could make seeing ghosts acceptable and normal in my life. I would be terrified constantly.
Robin is terrified of having human beings in her life. Like, I literally walked down the stairs and spoke to the dogs a room away from her, and she was like, ah! And that was like an hour ago, and she knew I was going to come down to see her when she came inside, when she got home from work. So, actually, I guess at this point it was a lot longer than that. But yeah, it's just a good example of how some people can adjust to things like having a spirit or an entity or just bizarre phenomenon happening in your life, and some people can't even cohabitate with another human being without almost pissing themselves when they walk into a room. So more power to you. Thank you for sharing that. Very sorry about your aunt. That's really messed up, and hopefully justice is done.
Yes.
But yeah, thank you for sharing. If you have additional stories, we absolutely always want to hear them as well. So
I mean, like I was saying, I think that all that stuff was absolutely terrifying. I do hope justice is served, because that's absolutely mind-blowing.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine it. Yeah. So, but right on. So thank you one more time to everyone who sent in their stories. We do sincerely appreciate you sharing those with us. Sometimes they can be deeply personal, and we appreciate the fact that you trust us to read those and treat them with respect. If you have a story you would like to share with us, you can email storytime@scarish.com or go to our website, scarish.com, and click on Contact Us. Fill that form out. It comes directly to us. Or you can hit us up on any of our social medias, whatever you are most comfortable. Facebook is facebook.com/scarishpodcast. Twitter is @scarishpod, and Instagram is @scarishpodcast. I know I already mentioned it, but Robin, for folks who would like to donate to us, how can they do so?
You can go to patreon.com/scarishpodcast. It is Patreon, January Patreon push.
January Patreon push!
Oh, fucking Jesus Christ. I will be posting a new little shopping list that you folks can purchase from. I ran out of a couple things that was on the last list, so there will be a new list that you can choose from of a mix of just Scary-ish merch and then Patreon exclusive Scary-ish merch. So I'll post that sometime before this weekend. And then, joining is only $1. So you get access to Patreon exclusive content, merch, ad-free episodes, stuff like that. Just for $1. It's pretty great. And then if you aren't into the whole monthly subscription type thing, you can go to ko-fi.com/scaryish podcast. Those are one-time donations. All your donations go to help us upgrade our studio setup and kind of keep us going, give us a little bit more time to make some content. And if you've been with us for the long haul, or you've been listening from the beginning, like you're a new person on the bandwagon, but you're jumping through episodes, you went through the beginning, now you're at the end, you'll notice huge difference in quality.
Significant
difference in quality. We used to have mismatched microphones, and now we have like matching ones. It doesn't sound all echoey. It's great. I love it. And it's all thanks to the support of all our spooky friends, our spooky fam, all of you guys. You guys are absolutely amazing, and we're so thankful for your help in making it to 2021.
Thank the Lord, we made it to 2021. Dirty money 2021. But seriously, thank you so much for all the support. It means the world to us. And I think that's just about everything we have for this episode of Storytime. So Robin, do that thing that you do and sign us out.
Keep on creeping on, and we'll talk to you next week or whenever you listen to this episode. Okay, bye.
We've only done it 150 times. Bye.